Welcome to the fourth episode of What's Wrong With You. My name is Diagnostic and I'm your host. Welcome to our listeners and our viewers from Oxford, and especially to those from further afield. Thank you to everyone who's been following our show in these nascent stages. I'm really excited to tell you about our special guest today and our fundraiser. When we get unwell, our first instinct is to Google. There's a whole diagnostic process that the internet has brought up. You pull up your incognito tab and you think, goodness, if I type this into my Google search bar and then somebody sees I was Googling for strange thing that's appeared on my body. No, it has to be on incognito. And you Google around, you put in, well, my back hurts, one of my eyeballs is falling out, maybe I've got a little bit of a headache. And you click on WebMD, our constant companion. And rather than telling you what's wrong, WebMD will actually just redirect you to your local funeral home's website. And I think the problem with this sort of diagnostic process is we're looking for answers, but we're also looking for the internet almost to validate us. Because if we knew what was going on, we wouldn't have to Google for it. But we want this amorphous thing to say, yes, you're unwell, and here's an answer. That in itself is not unreasonable. But what happens is we often do this in an isolated way. We're doing it in secret because maybe we don't want to tell somebody else what's going on. And that's why I'm very excited about today's guest, because what she's effectively done is taken the mystery of illness, taken the isolation of what it is to be unwell, and she's transformed that into a community. So today we're going to talk a bit about the app Van. And Van, I was talking to Ani, she says it's about being positive. She said, my experience of cancer was a positive one, and it's not something you often hear people say. And what she did with this app effectively was to bring together people who were having cancer, to share their experiences, to motivate one another, and to translate those experiences into research data. So what effectively you're getting is a community, but you're also getting validation, and you're building a bridge between lived experience and healthcare providers. And something I'm really hoping, you'll see today is that at the end of the day, the top expert in why you're unwell is you. It's not WebMD. It's not the Mayo Clinic's, albeit fascinating, website. It's you. And that's why this app is really something exciting to talk about. And this week we're doing another fundraiser, and this one is especially important to me because it's my good friend Ed is running the Cambridge Half Marathon, and he's doing so in support of Macmillan Cancer Support. And he's doing this for his family members who have been affected by cancer to share their experience and to spread the word about this amazing organization. So we're going to jump to a news segment, and at the end of our program today, we'll talk more about how you can support Ed, the half marathon at Macmillan Cancer Support. Welcome to our news segment, and to our viewers and listeners, those of you listening from our radio broadcast on Oxide Radio, you can also watch our episodes here on YouTube at /@LenosLock, that's LENAZLOCK, and if you watch this particular episode, you'll get to see me do 3 costume changes in 3 different locations, which is always fun. So before we delve into our interview with Ani Haykuni, I just want to give you a little bit on the news around today's topic. We're talking about cancer today, and in particular, dialogue around this issue, how people who receive this kind of diagnosis connect with one another, how they talk to their healthcare providers, and especially in the context of the healthcare settings that we've discussed in the last 2 or 3 episodes. So if you've been following the news over the past few months, you may have seen the story of a young woman named Jessica Brady, 27 years old, and she fought to get an appointment during lockdown. And when she was seen by her GP, she was told that her symptoms were, quote, nothing serious. And at the age of 27, she ended up passing away from a life-threatening cancer. And in a way, it's not just heartbreaking what happened to somebody like Jessica, but it's also incredibly frustrating that we keep hearing these stories of people who are fighting to see a GP, who are being told that nothing is wrong, and then they end up at a stage where it's too late to do anything. And of course, we've often talked about this in the context of women who are not being taken seriously by their GP. If you tuned in last week, we talked about Martha's Rule after 13-year-old Martha Mills died at King's College Hospital in London, and her mother is now advocating for patients to have easier access to a second opinion and for their families to be able to push for better care on behalf of their family member. In Jessica Brady's case, her family is now advocating for a law that will help patients get earlier diagnoses and avoid the fate that their daughter had, which she really shouldn't have had. So I'd like for us to reflect on that as we move into our interview with Ani Haykuni and to think about where can we do better communication. We'll talk in the interview about building a bridge between patients and healthcare providers. And the question is, where can we meet in the middle? Let me just tell you a bit about Ani. I was so excited that I was able to interview her for this episode. You know, in our nascent stages, it's always fun when we get extraordinary people who are happy to come on and talk about their story. And Ani was a lot of fun for me because I sort of come from an entrepreneurial background and thinking about how do you take issues and build a project out of them that can help other people. Especially, how do you take your story and use it to connect with others and to address a gap or a missing bridge, so to speak. So let me just tell you a bit about her. She's actually, I'm just reading here from her TEDx Oxford profile. She's an engineer by training, a 2-time cancer thriver, and patient advocate. And today we're going to talk in particular about her app, VAN, VANN. This app is fascinating because it's not another chat board, for example, for cancer patients. It's in community within the app where people can share the symptoms they have, the problems they're going through. They can ask for advice about how to talk to their GP. And it really brings people out of the isolation of this horrific diagnosis. But what really makes the app stand out is the fact that she uses the data that people provide to back up research on cancer. So it's really building that bridge between people's lived experiences and those who are there to care for them. Ani's MBA from Oxford's Said Business School, and her background is in environmental science and policy, with a master's in natural resources management and policy from the State University of New York and Syracuse University. And she's also founded the Ani Haykuni Cancer Treatment Support Foundation. So she will be a really wonderful guest for you to listen today. So we're just going to dive into that. And at the end of our episode, we'll give you a little update about our fundraiser. Today we're supporting a close friend of mine, Ed Lamb, who at the moment of this recording is probably running the half marathon in Cambridge in support of Macmillan Cancer Support, which he's doing for family members of his who have been affected by cancer. So for those of you in Oxford, thanks for tuning in on this foggy morning that shouldn't be so cold on March 4th. And to those of you tuning in from further abroad and on YouTube, welcome and enjoy our next interview. Okay, fabulous. Yeah, so I thought maybe we could start with the idea of names and labels, if you would be interested in talking about that. Because the first person I interviewed on this show, she said, I don't want to be known as a diabetic. I want to be known as someone with diabetes. And I'm curious, as you've sort of transitioned from a background in sort of environmental sciences to somebody who's had cancer, to somebody who's now an entrepreneur, how do you conceptualize yourself? And how do you feel like other people understand you?
Well, first of all, I've had, before my cancer diagnosis in 2015, I was this, ambitious person. I had a great career. I had achieved a lot before even, being diagnosed with cancer. And coming from the engineering background, then doing environmental sciences and management, and then having my diagnosis, which then helped me learn a lot about this disease in my life, and then being involved in entrepreneurship. I think I would say that it's kind of the combination of all. I don't mind being remembered by other people as a cancer survivor or cancer thriver, who is also a founder and who is also, developing a company, or I guess it's all about the impact, right? And as part of my work, I understand that I connect with different communities. So there is a cancer patient community. There is the business space, the business arena, the companies and people who follow the company, who follow the development of the company. So, and whatever inspires other people, and helps throughout this process, I'm totally fine with that. The only thing I actually trying not to use the cancer survivor word, because kind of the phrase, because now my whole experience with with cancer and with cancer diagnosis has been a very, very positive. So I do believe that I have, instead of surviving this disease, I've lived with it and I've thrived.
I want to get into that because I heard some language on people saying, well, don't say that I'm fighting cancer because it's not a battle, it's not an equal match by any means. But I want to delve into this, the diagnostic process and how you've lived with that. And there was something else you also just called to mind, which is you are talking to different communities of people who have different experiences of illness and of cancer in particular. And I want to talk about how you tell your story to them, because talking to funders at Oxford Innovation is going to be different than talking to somebody who's had breast cancer.
Sure.
Should we talk maybe, because people may not know your story, about your diagnostic process? Because it took place in Armenia, right?
It did. It actually happened. It's a very interesting story, in fact. Well, let me first of all tell you that very often when my story is publicized and it's been it appeared in different platforms and in different places in different countries, it very often it starts from my diagnosis in 2015. And I had this diagnosis, and then this is what happened, and then I came to Oxford and then developed and built the company. But before even my diagnosis, like since I remember myself since my childhood, I was this very ambitious person who always wanted to achieve as much as possible and do extraordinary things. When I was a child, I remember I wanted to do something different. I knew that I was different as well with my mindset, and Oxford University was on my list. It was a long-term goal that I was working towards. In 2015, in April of 2015, I heard the news that I was accepted into the MBA program at Oxford University Said Business School. I was so excited because I was very, very close to achieving my long-term goal. And I was getting ready for my departure for Oxford. So my departure was planned for September of 2016. September of 2015, that's when the program was supposed to start. And in July of 2015, I went to hospital for a checkup. I had some minor mild symptoms, and I just wanted to make sure that everything was all right before I would travel to Oxford. Well, I was told that I had cancer, and it took several weeks for the final diagnosis to come. But doctors, they were sure that something was wrong. It was late stage breast cancer. It was in Armenia, and I remember when I spoke with my oncologist, when I was told my diagnosis, instead of asking what was going to happen to me, what was the chance of the survival, I said, hey, can you treat me within 2 months before I have to go to Oxford? I don't really have time for hospital and for treatments. And he said, no, you should wait. You're going to need at least a year for treatments. So I contacted the admissions team at Said Business School. I told them, hey, I can't come because of this diagnosis. They deferred my admissions and they said, look, we are waiting for you, recover and come. And
Great.
that was very good because I knew that there was something waiting for me and I had to recover. So I started my treatments in September of 2015. I started a quite difficult treatment. It was chemotherapy, and I had a range of other therapies and treatments. Finished all of them. I mean, I finished my active treatments in August of 2016, and I came to Oxford in September of 2016.
So a year later.
Yes, a year later. And that year was a very productive and a very interesting, very educational period for me.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to talk about it as well. And so I came to Oxford in September of 2016, finished my program in 2017. I was still on treatment, so occasionally I would go to hospital, have my treatment, go back to school,
Yeah.
and finished that in 2017. And was involved in an entrepreneurial project for a couple of years. And in 2019, my cancer was back. And right after my diagnosis, my second diagnosis in 2019, I decided to build this company, which is called Van. And that's the company that I am developing now, that I'm working on now.
I want to get to the backstory of Van. Well, first I want to ask what the name means. But there was something when I was reading about, what other people have said about your story. You say that you were surprised at how little you spoke with your oncologist initially, and the fact that there wasn't that sort of rich dialogue going on. Did that play any role in how you actually ended up founding the company, or making you think, gosh, this is not a very normal experience to have?
So, well, first of all, there is a so when someone has a chronic disease, and I'm sure that it will resonate with a lot of people. So when someone has a chronic disease, the impact of it is different compared with just a minor health issue that takes a couple of days or a couple of weeks of treatment. And when the patient has a chronic disease, there is a lot going on with that person.
Oh, yeah.
And after some time, it may affect their mental health, or it may not have a huge impact on mental health, but that person has a lot of questions, right? And I would include myself in there as well, as someone who's had a chronic disease for several years. I do have a lot of questions about my diagnosis. Why did I get this diagnosis, or what happened? What went wrong? Because I had a healthy lifestyle before my diagnosis. I was very active. I was a very happy person. Why did it happen to me in terms of kind of the medical diagnosis? And in case of chronic diseases, we do need sometimes to reflect on our experiences and talk with other people that we are close with, and doctors are one of them. So when I go to see my doctor, I want to have a good quality time, well, in terms of have the time to tell them my symptoms, what was going on with me, the questions that I have. I would like to ask those questions and see what my doctor thinks, you see. And I know that a lot of people are like me. And usually what happens is that we have like 15 to 20 minutes for appointments, and that can range. It can be more or less than that, depending on the day or depending on the case. And that 15 or 20 minutes may not be enough for the patient to really feel like they are heard. They were able to discuss all their concerns with their doctors. And doctors are very busy as well. So if we look into the NHS and how the system works, there are so many patients, there are so many issues, and doctors cannot certainly spend so much time in just hearing your and discussing your concerns with you. They have a time limit as well, and that affects both sides, right? And sometimes patients feel like they would like more support. They would like to get that support, let's say, from somewhere else. And not everyone has the support of their family or close friends. And a lot of people end up just being on their own. They don't have the support. They don't have the motivation or anywhere else to go. And that's what I felt based on my work with with other patients in Armenia, and also when I came to the UK, very often a lot, people contact me on social media or via email. They have questions because they know my story. They know that I went through cancer. They would like to get some feedback, or would like to get some advice from me as a fellow patient. And that knowledge, that the understanding of this issue, this problem, this gap in the industry, convinced me that the importance of VAN. And that was one of the reasons why I founded VAN.
What you're talking about is something I have in my own experience as well. Of you have those informal conversations because you saw someone on Twitter has a symptom similar to yours, and you reach out to them because you feel either your doctor's not listening to you, or they, like you said, they don't have the time. And what you've essentially taken with VAN is taken those informal conversations and made it into a centralized platform. But there's also, it's not just a chat room. It's not another board on the internet. You're gathering data as part of the app itself, right? To inform research studies. Maybe you could tell me a bit more so I understand.
Sure. So when VAN was founded, so the reason behind VAN is very much to unite millions of people from around the world who've been affected by cancer, and their families and their friends and just the general public, to unite them around this common goal, the mission to make sure that everyone has access to the support and motivation that they need when they are on treatments, and in the meantime help cancer research.
Yeah.
And how can we contribute to cancer research? We as patients, we possess enormous amount of valuable information because we have gone through that. We have gone through this disease. We know more than anybody else what it means to be and to have this chronic disease, and what it means to live with side effects, what it means to go through the difficult treatments, to have your quality of life impacted by different factors, and especially when you have to continue to work and live a normal life. And it's very important to ask or to involve those people and patients in sharing their experiences and helping us collect that information, which then will go and educate. I wouldn't say educate, but it will inform the research community, saying, "Hey, look, this is what we've learned look, about this issue. Maybe it would be good to look into this." This is just for example. But based on that data, based on that information, we can then design more projects, more research projects. We can, go deep into that particular problem and help find answers to questions. So finding answers to questions about this disease is one of the reasons, like one of the problems that we want to address at VAN. And within our app, within our platform, we have in-app surveys. So this is a tool which is called Studies, and it has it consists of short questionnaires. And so, for instance, currently we have 4 surveys. They are on the impact of cancer on the quality of life, cancer, or the life before cancer, the side effects and cancer treatments. So when the user answers the questions on the fills out the surveys, instantly they can get some data on the app, on the platform. So they can see, for instance, how similar their experience is to other survey participants. Let 45, 70, for instance, your case is 70% similar to other survey participants. So this is what they can get instantly. But then when we collect that data, we will analyze and share the main insights with the public and with those people who participated in our surveys. And this information later on can be used, as I said, in contributing contributing to cancer research. While we do that, we don't use any personal, we don't share any personal data, any identifiers with with others outside of the company. This is very important to to mention.
I was curious about the data collection process there, but I'm wondering, when you were thinking about who these studies could benefit, were you talking to doctors and researchers? And were they giving you sort of insights of like, yes, this is something we really need? Or what was that design process like?
You mean in terms of the feedback, like the stages that we went through?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you were sort of designing the studies component of the app, were you bringing in, stakeholders from medicine who are saying this is what we could really benefit from?
So the surveys that we have currently in on the platform, so those have been designed by the company and based on the feedback and based on the common questions that the majority of patients that I have worked with, in particular, and they have raised. So those surveys haven't been designed by medical professionals and or the researchers yet,
Mhm.
but those are very I would say like informal surveys. Those are very easy easy to answer questions.
Right.
Later on, we plan to involve research organizations, research teams, or
Mhm.
doctors in designing or developing this further.
When you were pitching this to different funders and innovation groups, did they raise any questions? Like, what did you find were sort of areas where you had to really tell your story in order to get this off the ground? Because I think what's really unique about it is it's coming from a personal place and you're using people's stories as sort of the driver. It's not clinical and cold. So what was that like, telling that story and getting Van off the ground?
Well, so storytelling is very important, and particularly when you connect, when you need to communicate
Mhm.
the work that you do and your story with let's say with investors, with funding organizations, potential partners or users, and the approach is quite different. So
Mhm.
when, for instance, when we meet with potential, when I meet with potential investors, investors are interested, of course, in the return on their investment. So they want to see information, like they want to see the business, the bigger picture, how they're going to be involved, how the company is going to develop, and how you're basically they invest money and they would like to get to see when they're going to receive the return on investment. When we connect with potential partners, it's a bit different, the style that we use,
Mhm.
and or with users. But one thing certainly is common. The one thing that we use in all those cases is the story behind the company, story behind Van, why Van was founded, and why it is so important, why is it so powerful, and
Mhm.
why other people should believe in in Van, and the patient experience is very important in this case, because that's what gives us credibility, and that what gives me as a founder, that the credibility that I've gone through it.
Yeah.
I know the problem, but it's not. But just because I'm a patient, it doesn't automatically mean that I know and I've learned and I know the gaps in the industry. It's just
Mhm.
you still need to show. Still need to
Mhm.
back up your statements of it with the information that you bring up.
Mhm.
But I can say that coming from and and using the patient experience is incredible. It's powerful. It's a huge advantage compared with just other companies and other people who came up with this idea one day. They might not have that deep understanding about the issue,
Mhm.
compared with you as a founder who's lived it and who's connected with other patients.
You know what I love about what you're saying is in our last week's episode, we were talking about the fact that doctors often won't take patients' stories seriously or they won't give them that credibility. And the fact that you've managed to launch a company premised on that and to receive that funding, it flips the dynamic. It makes people say, we do need to be taken seriously. There's many of us. There's certain data-driven consistencies as well. So,
Indeed,
right?
indeed. And by the way, uh, for for the patient not being when the patient feels like their concerns or their feedback, whatever they want to say, is not taken into consideration, like they feel like their voice isn't heard, then it may affect them negatively.
Mhm.
So because it's their health, right? They leave those symptoms. They again, I have a huge respect for doctors, for medical professionals, for researchers, and I think we've had such huge progress in this space, especially, and very good treatments have been developed to treat this disease and different types of cancer. But still, patients know things that
Yep.
not everyone, like, they can see, they can feel that, and it's very important to give that opportunity to the patients to take part in the work that we do.
I just want to sidebar and ask, what is the name Van? Where does it come from?
Look, so Van means positive, happy,
Uh-huh.
and we so that's the meaning that we use, and we want, and I want other users to remember positivity and happiness and change when they use Van now or in the future. And Van word has different meanings
Mhm.
in different languages, certainly.
Of course.
But yeah, that's the meaning that we use for
Mhm.
that we've chosen Van for.
I'm curious, once you've developed this app and it's, gotten off the ground and people are using it, what have you, in your capacity as a patient, learned from it? Has it changed something in the way that you understand this illness?
I do use Van, so I do have the app in my phone, and I use it quite often. I do send nice messages. I mean, I use the Make a Smile tool on the app.
Where you can dedicate, right? And
Yes, so
yeah.
so yeah, so the app has this interesting tool which is called Make a Smile tool, and it basically allows the general public, regardless of their health situation, they can be completely healthy people, to
Mhm.
dedicate activities to others affected by cancer through our app. So, for instance, whenever I go for a walk, or I go for a run, or I just bake, whatever interesting I do, and like take a nice picture, write a nice message, and I dedicate that activity to others. And but I also use Van for information purposes as well.
Mhm.
And it's a it's a very interesting experience, because I've been heavily involved in designing this platform,
Yeah.
right from the design and the concept design. I haven't done the development, but like the colors, the design, the images, and a lot of things that are currently available on the platform,
Yeah.
um, like some of them have been developed by me as well. So I looked at that as this product developer, or the someone who had the idea of, but then I use Van as well. So as a patient, like it's a very interesting experience to look at from different sides. I do see a lot of potential for this app, for this platform,
Mhm.
to develop and to be developed. And we released, we launched a month ago,
Mhm.
and but we still have a lot of work to do in it. And by the way,
Mhm.
we've launched the mobile app, and the web app is
Uh-huh.
gonna launch. It's gonna be available soon.
And we'll make sure to link all of that when we post this
Yes, thank you.
audio for sure, so people can get excited. I'm
Thanks.
curious, as I'm looking at Van, my initial thought is, do you think this could be extrapolated to other communities with illnesses, perhaps like fibromyalgia or MS, or do you think what you do is quite unique to the experience of cancer?
Look, I do believe that this platform has the potential to be used for other illnesses, for other chronic diseases. And while it has been designed primarily focusing on cancer, and there are different types of cancer, and the experiences might be a bit different anyway. But we plan to make this approach more personalized in the future. But yeah, I do believe that there is the potential for it to be used for other chronic diseases. One thing we should certainly take into consideration is that the experiences will be different.
Right.
Like people living with cancer may be different from people living with other chronic diseases.
Yeah.
But that's the beauty of the product design and problem solving.
Yes.
And if at some point in the future we as a company decide that we would like to go into other areas, there is a lot of work and there is a lot of the analysis and consideration that will need to be really put into it. For now, we are just focusing on cancer. That's what I can say.
Well, I think it is such a huge variety of experiences within cancer. People have had relapses, the
Right.
stages, and things like that. I'm
Yes.
wondering, as you're thinking about the future of VAN, you've talked about that sort of disconnect between patients and doctors, and you've experienced that in different countries. What do you think are some of the big obstacles going forward in improving the way that people are taken seriously in healthcare settings? What do you think are the next problems that need to be addressed?
You mean in the hospitals? You mean in terms of the
Yeah.
communication between the patients and doctors, or?
Yeah, like the storytelling process of just, I need my doctor to listen to me. Obviously, there's, like you said, those logistical constraints. But what do you think, now with what you've done with VAN, what's the next big issue that needs to be tackled?
Well, look, so I do believe that the input that we get from other patients will help us to inform not only the research community but also doctors.
Yeah.
And today probably I can't kind of dive into it in more detail and talk about the plans, but currently, I can say for the UK, there are enormous amount of like innovations, technologies. Some of them AI supported, and some of them, a lot of solutions that have been created, and they are offered to hospitals and to clinicians. And clinicians, certainly, they can't use everything, so they need to choose which one is best and which one is really going to improve that the quality of care, the communication with patients and clinicians. Because if it's too much, it may not be helpful. But we as a company, what we can certainly do, we can communicate the issues that our patients, our users have raised, the insights from data that we collect, and we will do our best to make sure that the stakeholders are aware of these issues. And again, it's not just gonna be like we go and we share this data with others. No, not at all. I mean, there are processes that we need to follow. But in general terms, we as a company have taken the role of being the bridge between the patient community and research organizations, industry, industrial players, policymakers, hospitals. That's the role that we've taken. One thing I would like to emphasize is that VAN hasn't been created in order to replace the support or the care provided by hospitals or doctors. We are here just to fill in a gap. We are here to provide positivity, support, motivation to the patients. And for the patients, and I'm saying this as a chronic, I wouldn't say as a chronic, but I'm saying this as a patient who has had a chronic disease, a chronic diagnosis. We for the patients, it's very, very important to maintain their relationship with their doctors. We need the human contact very much. We are human. We are social beings, and whatever we do, we need to make sure that patients talk with their doctors, or they see their doctors, if it's urgent or if it's important.
I think that's a really beautiful note to end on. I'm only ending it now because they're going to kick me out of the studio in 10 minutes, and I want to make sure that you and I talk. But
Okay.
I think what you said is, at the end of the day, it is that human contact with the doctor. And what we need are, as you call them, bridges to make that contact easier, especially under those logistical pressures. So we're going to post everything for Van, and we'll also post a link to your foundation, which I think has also been a recent up and coming innovation. So
Thank you.
so much for coming on the program.
I love watching people run, especially when they're not supposed to be running, like for the train station. And I love watching people run for exercise. I was told when I came to Oxford, if you see someone running, it's probably an American. But today, I want to talk to you about a very close friend of mine who's running for an amazing cause. We talked a bit at the beginning of the episode about fundraising for Macmillan Cancer Support. And I love having friends who are athletes because I sort of live vicariously through them. And my friend Ed, tomorrow he's running the Cambridge Half Marathon. And by tomorrow, I mean Sunday. He's going to be running the Cambridge Half Marathon in support of Macmillan Cancer Support. And we would like to help him out with this initiative and to raise some money. So we're going to include the link down below. And for anybody who's ever just watched someone run from a park bench and think, I'm really glad I'm not them, you can at least support Ed with this amazing initiative he's doing on behalf of family members affected by cancer. So thank you so much for watching our episode, and we'll be back next week.
Thank you so much for watching our episode. I hope that you learned as much from Ani as I did, and that it challenged some of your ideas around cancer and what it means to be ill within a community. I also hope you'll support us in supporting Ed for his half marathon tomorrow for the Macmillan Cancer Organization. We're going to post links to everything we've talked about today, including Van and the fundraiser, both on our Oxide Radio Live webpage and on our YouTube channel. Stay tuned because we have an amazing guest lined up for our 5th episode. Thank you to everyone and take good care.